By the early 1970s, audiences had been treated to 6 Hammer Frankenstein movies so far, not to mention several Universal Frankenstein movies from decades earlier. Frankenstein-adjacent characters like Herman Muncer were also hugely popular. Frankenstein and his creature were pop culture icons, therefore ripe for parody.
You have to find the right head for this torso. It has to be of a man who strongly craves women, whose overriding urges are sensual.
In 1973, film director and friend of Andy Warhol, Paul Morrissey, came up with an idea to create an absurd, camp and ludicrously over-the-top version of Frankenstein, weaving in explicit sex, extreme gore, and taboo themes such as incest and necrophilia into the Frankenstein story, then shooting the whole thing in 3D.
They're going to be a true start of a new race, entirely created by me.
Unsurprisingly, Flesh for Frankenstein was more of a cult underground hit, but 1 year later came a far more mainstream homage to Frankenstein.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits?
While shooting their comedy western Blazing Saddles, director Mel Brooks and actor Gene Wilder came up with an idea for their next project, a sequel/homage to Universal's Frankenstein, about the Doctor's grandson, Frederick Frankenstein,
You're putting me on.
who inherits his family's castle and, as a result, inherits his grandfather's passion for creating life.
Give my creation life!
Join me as we continue exploring the evolution of man-made monsters and we discuss 2 comedic, absurdist twists on Mary Shelley's story, Young Frankenstein and Flesh for Frankenstein.
To know death, Otto, you have to fuck life in the gallbladder.
Is that my new favourite quote of all time? To know death, you must fuck life in the gallbladder. Welcome back to the evolution of horror. My name is Mike Muncer, and as ever, I am your host. In this podcast, we explore and dissect the history and the evolution of the horror genre, one subgenre at a time. We are currently in the middle of our 11th season exploring the evolution of man-made monsters, and this is part 6. In this week's episode, as that intro suggested, we continue exploring Frankenstein adaptations with a couple of more comedic, absurdist takes on the story. So later on in the episode, I'm going to be joined by Dan Martin to discuss one of the most deranged films I've seen in a while, Andy Warhol's Flesh for Frankenstein. But first of all, in the first half of this episode, we are going to discuss one of the most beloved comedy films of all time, Young Frankenstein. Both of these discussions will be spoilerific. If you can get hold of these films, I would urge you to watch both. What a joy both movies are. Give them a watch before you listen to our discussion. So, in the first half of this episode, joining me to discuss Young Frankenstein, I've got a brand new guest. He is an actor, a comedian, a podcaster, an all-round entertainer, and a massive horror fan. It is my great pleasure to welcome to the podcast, Sam Pancake. Hello, Sam.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? You're over in sunny California right now, right?
I'm in sunny, glamorous Los Angeles right now.
Oh,
yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join me this week. So excited to have you here. First of all, Sam, just tell people, for anyone out there listening who doesn't know who you are, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
My name is Sam Pancake, and I'm primarily an actor. I mostly do TV. I do some film. I do a lot of stage stuff here in Southern California, in LA, I mean, and in New York a little bit, like different campy comedy, fun stuff. I also write. I do stand-up sometimes. I have a podcast that is called Sam Pancake Presents the Monday Afternoon Movie, and it initially was just about TV horror movies from the 70s and 80s that I grew up on.
Oh my God, amazing.
And now Yeah, it's been really fun, and it's gone from. But even though there are still more of those horror films to cover, I started branching out into like teen trauma movies of the 70s and 80s, like all the like Sarah T. Portrait of a Teenage Alcoholic and Dawn Portrait of a Teenage Runaway. So that's what I do that podcast as well.
I love that. As soon as I think 70s TV movies, I think Stacey Ponder. Have you had Stacey Ponder on the podcast?
Oh, yes.
By any chance?
Twice.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Perfect.
I was going to say.
She was just on. She did the first one this year. She kicked off, the first or second one of this year.
Yeah.
She's always delightful. I love Stacey.
Absolutely delightful. Yeah, I love that. Fantastic. So tell me a little bit about your kind of horror origin story. Do you sort of remember like when you first fell in love with the genre? Like, what was your first horror film experience?
The first like moment I remember super vividly, which is pretty common for, I think, people my age and especially gay men my age, is just the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz. And just seeing that, extreme green face and the hat. And I remember being terrified because it used to be on TV once a year.
Yeah.
And this would be back in the 60s, and it's like hiding behind the couch from her. And even movies like Mary Poppins. I remember there was which was the first movie I saw in a theater, and it was the movie that made me be like, oh my God, I want to be whatever that is up there on that screen. That's where I want to be.
Yes.
But even in that movie where Jane and Michael are escaping and there's like kind of like scary Cockney woman jumps out, it's like, like in an alleyway. And I remember being like, whoa, what's going on? What's happening? And then from there, I don't know. I also have a very vivid, terrifying memory of going to see in the early 70s, like probably Willy Wonka with Gene Wilder, or the Puff and Stuff movie. And at our little hometown theater in Romney, West Virginia, this is before the this trailer is appropriate for the movie.
Right.
Before.
Yeah.
And at one of those kiddie movies, they had the trailer for Taste the Blood of Dracula with Christopher Lee.
Oh.
And I remember being like, what is happening in the world? And the red hammer blood and his white face and just screaming. And also, oh my God, he's so handsome, because I knew I was gay like super crazy early, way earlier than any child should have that sort of knowledge about oneself. And just that mixture of feelings was like, that frisson, that shiver that runs through your spine, that's like terror and excitement and a little bit like erotic even then, sort of.
Yeah.
And then from that, I quickly just loved anything haunted house.
Yeah.
Or I also grew up in a very old kind of like haunted plantation, more or less, that had been the family a while. And that's a whole other story. And people had died there, including my grandfather. And
wow.
And, yeah. And not by suicide, it was very, my childhood was in general, I like to call it a gothic Appalachian farce. Like it was just, there was a lot of sort of, ghost stories and legends and tales. And then in the 70s, which is what inspired my podcast, was I was obsessed with these scary TV movies, like Don't Be Afraid of the Dark and Trilogy of Terror and The Screaming Woman and Scream Pretty Peggy, and just these movies that I was allowed to watch the beginnings of. Yeah. And then just getting completely worked up about how scary it was and terrifying and the excitement of that. And then I would have to go to bed. So it was like coitus interruptus. Yeah. And then I would say, Mama, tell me what happened. And the next morning she'd like, oh, I forgot, or it was dumb. And so I became, in my brain, a lot of people in my generation I have learned feel this way. It's kind of Gen X, is all those crazy TV movies we saw in the 70s. And then none of them in the 80s and 90s were available on VHS or DVD. Right. Yeah. And they weren't anywhere to be found. And so we all were like, did we dream that? Did that really happen? Was it a TV show? That kind of like that curiosity and wonderment of like, what the hell just went on in my life? It wasn't until YouTube came along and stuff started coming out really in the last 10 years that that's what inspired my podcast to do that. So those TV horror movies were huge for me as a little kid.
I love that. There is a bit of mystique that has gone now, right? Because of like the digital world. And it's great in so many ways. But those movies that you have a kind of vague fever dream memory of as a kid, you can now so easily actually find them and track them down, right? Which is great
Completely.
in some regards, but I think it does remove a bit of the sort of mythic status of some of those films almost.
It does. But I'm happy to report because I seem to be me and Amanda Reyes, who is also the TV movie lady from Austin. She's like literally a professor and wrote the book on scary TV movies, which I keep here on my shelf called Are You in the House Alone? It's a great book. Yeah. She and I kind of are the ones, it seems, and we've worked together too. But still, people will contact me because of this, of my reputation or whatever, and say, do you remember this movie where there was like a giant glowing donut and the kids were afraid of it, but the parents knew what it was? And then also there was like a hobo and like these crazy things. And I'm like, no, but I would love to. So there are still things out there that was a random TV episode, or so there are occasionally these little tidbits out there still to be learned. So that keeps me going.
I love that. And now you're a bit more of a kind of seasoned horror fan. What kind of horror do you tend to sort of gravitate towards? Do you have a particular favorite type, favorite subgenre?
I do. Well, definitely ghosts and old dark house. Yeah. Any haunted house, and I realize more and more that that's because where I grew up, there were lots of these big old rambling houses that had lots of secrets and stories. I'm sure that impacted it. And just ghosts in general, like anything from the original Old Dark House, which wasn't really ghosts, to the others. But I'm more of a supernatural guy. I've seen and enjoy a lot of the slashers, but I'm not a slasher guy so much. In fact, and this is, some people are going to scream at me when I say this, I remember being a teenager in high school in the early 80s. And the only things for teenagers that were on the big screen then, this is before John Hughes came along with more, was Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Great. Very, there was that, but there were just like, Porky's, and which was like a raunchy, super boobs sex comedy. Gay Boy was not interested. And they were just like so raunchy and tasteless. And then Friday the 13th or Halloween, where my peers, other teenagers, were just being horribly murdered. Right. And I didn't like just seeing people get horribly murdered, especially if they're having sex, because I wanted to have sex with guys. And then when I started to get to have sex with guys, that's when AIDS came along. So dying from that sex was very present for me. And guys, gay men my age and lots of people my age, obviously. So I didn't really, and I'm not someone, and again, sorry to the slasher fans, I'm not someone who's like, what a great kill. Like sometimes I do, especially in a horror comedy, but I've also, time out for depression, I've just lost so many friends to different deaths that it's just not as entertaining to me. That being said, I love the original Halloween. I remember exactly how I felt when I first saw it in 1978 when I was in 8th grade and what an impact it had on me. So I can appreciate the slasher, but I am more of a supernatural or demons and possession and Ouija board type guy.
Totally. And I think, that's really what horror should be, I think, as in like giving you a feeling of horror or repulsion about the idea of death, right? And I think that's where slashers kind of slightly evolved into something else. But I think in Halloween, you actually care about those characters and you don't want them to die. And when they do die, that is treated as something truly horrific, right? And I think you're right. We lose that by midway through the 80s, I think, for sure.
Completely. Though I will say something I saw recently that and it's a creature movie, but Infestation, the French film about the spiders in the high rise. Yeah. It's so good. Y'all should watch it if you haven't seen it. And I think you guys covered it here on the podcast. We did. That's how I learned about it. So again, thank you, Mr. Muncer.
You're welcome.
Horror Master Muncer. And that is one of the few films I've seen recently where the friends when their best friends die or siblings die, they have the appropriate reaction.
Right.
And it was really effective.
Right. I love that. So what are your feelings on, I think it's going to be especially kind of relevant for the conversation we're about to have today. What are your thoughts on the old sort of monster movies, right? We've been talking a lot over the last few weeks about Frankenstein in the kind of Universal era and the Hammer era. What are your thoughts generally on those kinds of films?
I was fascinated by them when I finally learned what they were in the 70s. And I was one of those boys that had or kids that had the Universal monster models. Like, I didn't care about, I had car models and trains and stuff, which a little boy is given. But my favorite were I had Frankenstein's monster and Dracula and, the Charles Laughton Quasimodo and Wolfman. And I love putting those together and painting them. They parts of them glowed in the dark.
Oh.
And also my first exposure to that, because again, this is the 70s. We only got one channel at the time where I lived out in the country. We didn't have the access to this stuff. But I vividly remember going to my grade school to have this thing called the Penny Bazaar, which is just like a little festival, but inside. And they would show different classrooms had different things going on in them. And one of them was just showing chopped down versions of classic Universal horror monster movies. And I remember seeing Son of Frankenstein. Like, I realized later that's what it was, clipped down to like maybe 5 minutes, but with no sound, like music playing, and just being like, what is that? Yeah. And then seeing, and just like being riveted by that, but I had no access to it. I also, though, had the monsters. I would buy the books where you could make your own monster makeup, putting oatmeal all over your face and letting it dry, and then putting strips over it to be the mummy. So I was really fascinated by those monsters, chiefly because I had no way to see them. So they lived in, fascination and mystery.
Right. Well, I think that's really interesting, actually. That's what we're going to talk about this week, that idea that by the 1970s, everyone, even kids, were familiar with the monsters, right? Even if they hadn't seen the movies, Frankenstein's creature, the mummy, Dracula, these were just kind of pop culture icons by this point, right?
Yeah.
Frankenstein had so many adaptations by the 70s. Why do you think, what is it about this particular story that lends itself to so many kind of interpretations?
Well, I think it's that sort of idea of creating life, of man playing God. And I specifically mean man, because women can create life with their bodies, with a little help from the fellas, of course. But like, it is, I think, a male and a particularly cisgendered, maybe heterosexual male, heteronormative male, like, I can create life too.
Yes.
You won't take that from me, woman. Even more interesting that a woman wrote the book. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's it, because wouldn't we all like to create, or maybe not all of us, but I imagine a lot of people would like to create another human, maybe in their own form, like we're told God did with Adam, if you want to believe all that. But I think that's what it is. It's the creation of life, and the ego involved in that.
That's right. The ego, the hubris. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited to discuss this. I think there's lots of really interesting stuff to talk about. Let's get into it. We're going to discuss Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein from 1974.
Kill the monster! See Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein.
Yes, I think we could all use a good laugh.
But don't see it alone. Don't miss Young Frankenstein, personally directed by Mel Blazing Saddles Brooks, in black and white. No offense.
Sam, set the scene for us. Give us a little plot synopsis of Young Frankenstein.
I will indeed. Dr. Frederick von Frankenstein, by his own description, a rather brilliant surgeon, teaches at university and adamantly denounces the work of his grandfather, Dr. Victor Frankenstein, even refusing to answer to that particular pronunciation. Then, after being brought his grandfather's will in a box by Herr Folkstein, he is lured back to the family castle in Transylvania, while, with the help of his assistants Igor, his buxom laboratory assistant Inga, the housekeeper Frau Blucher,
yeah, good.
and at the opposition of Colonel Kemp, he finally discovers and embraces his true fate as a Frankenstein.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautifully done. So, Sam, first of all, just start us off. Tell us what you think of this movie generally, and what's your kind of history with it?
I love this movie very much.
Yeah.
It is one of my favorite movies, definitely favorite comedies of all time. Speaking of back in the 70s and being a kid, I vividly remember seeing this in the theater in my little town in West Virginia. I was probably in 4th or 5th grade. I saw this movie before I even saw Frankenstein.
Wow, yeah.
The James Whale or the full version of Bride or Son of or Ghost of.
Yeah.
So, but of course it was enough in the culture and spoofed enough, Scooby-Doo, and every kid show had sort of a Frankenstein spoof, which was more tame than Dracula because no blood was being sucked.
Yeah.
So I loved it. And I also was already, had just seen What's Up, Doc for the first time, which also has Madeline Kahn and Kenneth Mars, and even the actor Liam Dunn, who plays the old man on the table, you mother-grabbing bastard. He's in What's Up, Doc, and I loved Cloris Leachman, who did such an amazing job of being in comedies and also these really tense horror movies that were on TV. And I was all in, and I rewatching it, which I've done many times. When I rewatched it yesterday and this morning for this, I was like, this is one of the main ways I learned comic timing.
Right.
Because the timing in this, just the beats and the pauses and the holds are perfect. And I still have those. Like I heard another actor say once on a podcast, I heard the metronome.
Wow.
I had that metronome in me of comic timing from What's Up, Doc, Young Frankenstein, and Laverne and Shirley. I wanted to be an actor and have comic timing, so I kind of got to do that. So it meant a lot to me then. Also, it was my father and I did not have a great relationship, and we had very little in common, but one of the things we did have in common was this movie. And he passed away in 2018, but before his dementia got pretty bad, one of the last good times I remember with him was sitting and watching this movie together and laughing at the same things. Wow. So, it means a lot to me that way because he and I had very little stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so interesting, and I think this film is really special for a lot of people. And I think you're right. Probably so many people came to this movie as kids. Probably actually thinking about it when I rewatched it this time, I was like, actually, there's some stuff in here that is very much not for kids. But I saw it for the first time as a kid as well, and I think for a lot of people, this is probably their gateway into the world of Frankenstein. Right? I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Complete with the same lab equipment, which they got from the guy who made it.
Right. Oh, I mean, and this is the thing, the detail of this film. Maybe that's where we should begin, by just talking about Mel Brooks's directing here, because, he uses black and white, no offense. He uses props from the original, bits of set from the original. How do you find the way in which this film just looks, I suppose?
It's beautiful. Yeah. It's gorgeous. It is from the opening, credits, Thunderbolt, Young Frankenstein, the castle. That's what hooked me as a kid. That's all I wanted. What I still want is stuff like that. And just how they didn't cheap out on, because they wanted him to do it in color. Yeah. To film in color. And he was like, no, it has to be black and white. Mm-hmm. And then they were like, well, we'll do it on color stock. And then when we release it, we'll release it on black and white. And he knew that they would screw him over. Right. So he's like, no, we're filming this on black and white, thick stock. Yeah. And I'm so glad he did that. It's so vivid, the whites and the blacks. The cinematography is incredible. And that's why it works. Yeah. It's not like, sorry, Mr. Brooks, I worship and adore you, but when you get around to Dracula Dead and Loving It and the other things that just don't look good, they look cheap. Yeah, and absolutely. Made on the fly, not on the fly, but not with this sort of care and love and precision to detail, which I imagine, I bet Gene Wilder had a lot to do with that too, since he was a producer and a co-writer. And this was almost kind of his brainchild, wasn't it? Gene Wilder kind of came up with the initial idea, I think. Yeah. During Blazing Saddles, which I also love Blazing Saddles, but I didn't care about Westerns, even though I've seen that a million times. But I did care about horror, so this is the one that really stuck with me. I mean, it's pretty amazing, actually, Mel Brooks, right? That he did Blazing Saddles and this in the same year, right? He made them back to back. Right. Yeah, boom, boom.
Crazy. I feel like he really peaked early, right? I feel like, I mean, I haven't seen a huge amount of his later work, but, you know, the producers, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, I think that they are kind of thought of as his masterpieces, right? In a lot of ways.
Completely.
Yeah.
And the musical of the producers is the best of the thing that it is.
Right,
you know?
right, yeah.
And that movie's good for a movie musical. But yeah, the original producers, I think I didn't see that till after this. So I saw Blazing Saddles first and then Young Frankenstein in my Mel Brooks chronology. But yeah, and then Silent Movie. I remember like being kind of tickled by that when I saw it.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I like and still didn't sink into me as deeply then, but I like now about Mel Brooks is like he includes kind of gay humor and references, but it's not insulting or bullying. And it was just like Roger Debris and the producers,
right? And
in Blazing Saddles when the fighting gangs of cowboys burst through the studio wall and there's a big sort of like Astaire musical being filmed and it's very gay. Stick out your tush, give it a push, which I was like, what's happening when I was a little kid? But now I'm like he's just saying like people be gay and here they are and he's not being a dick about it. It's just like, you know, so I appreciate that too.
Yeah. And I'm keen to know, as somebody that has, you know, done a lot of comedy and worked in comedy, how important is Mel Brooks to comedy cinema and particularly these kind of early movies?
Well, to me, he's very important.
Yeah. Like
I said, from the timing, because he taught me timing. This movie and others like it taught me timing. And I think it still holds. And I also just so many of the lines like, put the candle back. There's so many like, roll into hay. Like there's so many lines that are shorthand for so many of us my age and older and younger too, that are just, you know, just touchstones of comedy that like, if you know someone knows that, you get that they get what comedy is, what good comedy is.
So this is, I would say, you know, it's comedy first, horror second, right? This is very much kind of framed to be a comedy film, but it does pay such beautiful kind of homage. How would you define this? Is this a spoof? Is this a kind of pastiche? Is it a satire? Is it just a straight up sequel to Frankenstein? Like there's a million different ways you could interpret this, right? In some ways,
it does operate on many of those levels, and I overall would say it is the perfect blend of homage and spoof. Right. It is done with such love, and because it's done so well, so precisely. Great care was taken with the writing and the filming and the acting, that is love, even though they're spoofing the original movie, and it is a sequel. Yeah. And even at the time, of course, I was a little kid and I was like, maybe that's how life is. It starts off and we think we're in the 70s, like the classroom at the university. Those people seem to be in the 70s. And then you get to the train station with Elizabeth, with the fabulous Madeline Kahn, who I forgot to mention in my little synopsis, but who is one of my favorite actors of all time. And also another way I learned comedy. Like, she's my favorite part of Blazing Saddles. Yeah. But when they get to the train station, she seems kind of 30s-ish. Yeah. And then by the time they get to Transylvania, we seem to be right back in the 1800s again. So, like, what is his timeline? Oh, it doesn't matter. But yeah. Because he's just his grandson, so yeah. So I don't know.
Exactly. But I love that about it. That it's obviously it is poking fun at Frankenstein. It is a kind of spoof, but not in the same way that, like you say, Dracula Dead and Loving It was, or the Scary Movie films, in which in those films it's like we are stepping outside of the world of the film. You know, they talk about Scream as a movie, whereas Young Frankenstein is set in that world and it follows the rules of that world. You know?
Exactly, and also the sets, because they shot this on the old MGM backlot before they sold all that off, and it became just like another suburb or another rows of houses in Culver City. Right. So those are like legit old for 30s and 40s sets too, the exteriors.
Beautiful. So we've got to talk about Gene Wilder then. Gene Wilder as Frankenstein. What do you think, again, as a performer of comedy? I'd love to know what your thoughts are on Gene Wilder and how big a deal he is in the world of comedy too.
Well, he loomed really large to me, and I suspect a lot of people my age, when we saw as little children Willy Wonka on the big screen for the first time, which he was kind of scary, and then he turns out to be loving at the end. And there's true horror in that too, when they're going through the tunnel and the eyeballs and all that stuff, which is
God.
another
nightmare fuel. Yeah.
Right, completely, which is, I should have mentioned earlier, that too really scared the pants off of me when I was a little kid. And so he so lodged into my head through Willy Wonka that was always in there. And it was that thing because I had this volatile father of like, you didn't know if you were going to get like, just really be scared by him and punished and bad things, or he was going to turn around and do something really generous and kind. Right. So that Gene Wilder kind of embodied that volatility to me. And he's kind of different in Blazing Saddles because in Blazing Saddles, gosh, I should look this up. He wasn't supposed to play the part that he did of the...
yeah, that's right.
Oh, crap. I can't remember the name of the something kid. I have to look it up. But, like, it was supposed to be a more, like, mainstream leading man, and then he got in there. And it's funny because you don't think of him as being some scary Western six-shooting, bandit. Yeah. But he was. And so he's very important to me through that and through things like The World's Greatest Lover, which is a much lesser known spoof of Valentino films that he did with Carol Kane. Yeah. Which I watched again recently. But he was important to me, but like also it's this little gay kid. I really like looking at handsome men. Yeah. And he was like, to me, he was like not that, but he also was very compelling in a certain way. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he was, and then his work later with Richard Pryor, like Silver Streak and stuff like that, that was big for us too.
Yeah, I love him. He's like you say, there's that mania to him where he can be quite scary and hilarious at the same time. And I think that's why he's such a perfect choice for a movie like this, right? With it's kind of straddling horror and kind of absurd comedy. But yeah, I mean, same. I'm sure for so many of us that's the case. Where we grew up watching him in Willy Wonka. Yeah, and I had older sisters who loved the Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder movies. We watched Stir Crazy a lot. And the do you remember See No Evil, He No Evil?
Oh, that's right.
Deaf and blind man
guys
on the run. Amazing.
My God, amazing. What an unexpected duo! But my God, they were funny.
Really funny. Really funny.
And also, it's something that because it didn't used to happen very often until lately, where performers would write their own material and like get them made into like it started out with stand-ups, getting sitcoms, and then more and more, it became people writing things for themselves. And of course, he was kind of an OG of that because he's perfect for this role because he tailored it to himself, and good for him.
Yeah, I love that. And it's true. I mean, it feels so perfect for him, doesn't it? From that introduction scene when he's teaching the class, that moment when he stabs himself in the leg with the fork, right? Yes. It's just so perfect. Again, it's that perfect Gene Wilder balance, isn't it? I think.
Completely. And he holds it together so well, but then you read about the behind the scenes and you watch all these amazing clips that are on YouTube about them breaking up and the bloopers and stuff. There are a lot of them. They're so funny, but he would crack up a lot. And there's one where Cloris Leachman is so mad at him because she is like, "Can I have 1 mil?" And her perfect, like with the candelabra in the room, like, Ovaltine. And he kept breaking up, which I get because she's so fucking funny.
So funny. The Ovaltine, it is really funny, that moment. And there is something, I mean, you mentioned this about the timing. This film is quite long, right? It's nearly 2 hours long, and actually it feels like we get less comedies like this these days, but it feels like it really kind of takes its time.
It does.
With some of those jokes and gags as well, even though they are also quite, they come at you pretty fast at the same time,
Yes, which reminds me of the fact that I was reading about that and I'd only read this on this rewatch when I was prepping for the pod. It was twice as long. Yeah. And it was not good. And they went through and cut out, I guess it said like 1 out of every 3 or 4 jokes was good. So they chopped it way down. Wow. And then it was successful. So it does take its time. And also on this rewatch, I was also kind of clocking that. So the Richard Haydn character, Herr Fulkstein. Yeah. Richard Haydn, who I didn't realize until this rewatch, was like Max in The Sound of Music. That's Max.
Oh, right.
And he and he also was gay in real life. So I noted that. And so he takes the box, which has the grandfather's will, and he takes it to him after the class. And he's like, here's the will. And then he just goes to Transylvania. And in one of the trivia I read said that his part was much longer. So I suspect, because I suspect that they cut out some sort of explanation of him, of that Herr Folkstein character luring him back or tantalizing him back or convincing him because he wants nothing to do with it. You know, Frederick wants nothing to do with it. And then suddenly he's on the train going there.
Right.
And you're like, why? Why?
Yeah.
We missed that. And I think that must have been tossed out with the rest of it.
Yeah.
But it does take its time.
It does. It kind of feels like story and characters come first, jokes come second, rather than kind of, I guess, structuring it around jokes in that same way that you get with other comedies. So we meet, and it's just an embarrassment of riches, actually, isn't it, with the supporting cast in this film? But Marty Feldman as Igor is just astonishing, I think, every time he's on screen.
You must be Igor.
No, it's pronounced Igor.
But they told me it was Igor.
Well, they were wrong then, weren't they?
Of course. I'm sure we'll get along splendidly. Oh, sorry. You know, I don't mean to embarrass you, but I'm a rather brilliant surgeon. Perhaps I could help you with that hump.
What hump?
He's that perfect blend of self-aware, but completely in it. And he is the one that kind of looks, and I'm not being mean, like you can't always tell where he's looking, but he looks, you know, he breaks the fourth wall a lot. And he's so aware of the movie he's in and the genre he's in, and he does it so perfectly. And we lost him too young. I mean, he wasn't that old when he died. And he was such a, obviously, you know, vivid presence on the screen in the 70s that as a kid, you're kind of like, it's like a living cartoon. And he knew that. And apparently when they do the classic, you know, walk this way thing, that was one of the things that almost got cut out because even Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder were like, oh my God, that tired old chestnut, that old wet dog. But they're like, no, let's keep it in. And it really does work. And for someone like me, that's the first place I saw that. And I was like, oh my God.
Right, exactly.
So funny.
It always makes me laugh. And apparently, I don't know if this is one of those facts that isn't, but apparently this was the inspiration for Aerosmith's Walk This Way as well. Like that's what
I heard. Yes, and they went to visit, and they, who knows?
I love that. Probably. I love it if that's the case. Fantastic. But yeah, he is brilliant. He's so striking, and you're right. He has the one character that's slightly kind of different to the rest because he does break the fourth wall a lot as well, and kind of talks directly to us, whereas the rest of them play it quote unquote straight. Like they are ludicrous characters, but in the world of the story, they are playing it. They're taking the drama seriously, I suppose. Whereas Marty Feldman is the one who is like looking at us, sort of going, "Look at how ridiculous this is." I suppose
completely.
Right? You know?
And everyone, especially Gene Wilder and Peter Boyle, each have moments where they look right in the camera, kind of regarding it. But it's that very precise sort of like. Which has impacted me too much because I probably do it too much when I'm doing work because it's so deep in my soul, embedded from this movie.
Oh, Terry Garr as Inga as well, phenomenal, right?
I love her so much.
Yeah,
and she auditioned, I guess, for Elizabeth, but then she didn't get it, so they asked her if she could do a German accent, and she was like, yeah, and she got the part, and she's perfect, and she's so beautiful and supple, if I could say that word. I always loved her. She was one of my favorites. All these women were Cloris, Madeline, Terry. It's like it doesn't get better.
It doesn't. The Cloris Leachman, Frau Blucher, who we get a horse whinny every time, right? It's mentioned for no reason, right? But it's brilliant. Right. It's brilliant. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the randomness. And, it was, even as a kid seeing it, you're like, why do the horses do that? She must have whipped them or beat them or something. They're afraid of her. And then later on, the kind of rumor, not the rumor, but the factoid went around that like Blucher is glue in German, or Mel Brooks said that to someone, which it's actually not. So it goes back to like, what did she do? Because it's her name that does it, not just like seeing her, but hearing her name. So it's unclear, but it doesn't matter. It's just absurd, silly ridiculousness and so delicious.
Absolutely delicious. Yeah. I love it so much, and I love this kind of because Frederick Frankenstein, he kind of starts off kind of very much kind of distancing himself, right? That's why he calls himself Frankenstein, and then that sort of obsession happens almost immediately, right? When he gets to the house and discovers the secret room and discover the secrets and everything, right? And I love that switch he does.
Completely. And you wonder how much was cut out, but it does happen pretty rapidly on the heels of his total denial that he wants anything to do with it. And then the da-da-da-da-da-da-da, which is truly a beautiful score. The score is really beautiful.
Beautiful.
And Frau Blucher, lures him down to the laboratory. And then eventually when they, the puts the candle back scene, when they get to the book that his grandfather wrote called How I Did It.
How I Did It. It's so good.
It seems louder over here. Hand me that candle, will you? Put the candle back.
There are so many just wonderful visual gags, everything from that incredible, put the candle back, the revolving bookcase sequence to that book, How I Did It, right? It is like filled with little details and jokes. It's one of those movies that I think you discover more and you laugh at more the more times you watch it, And then, of course, we get to the iconic creation scene. And we talked about this a lot over the last few weeks. The creation scene is always like the centerpiece of any Frankenstein movie, it feels like, even though that's kind of not such a big moment in the original text, but in the movies it always is. I love this sequence. Again, the way in which they kind of visualize and the audio of the lab scene, the thunder and lightning, the It's Alive. It's actually one of my favorite It's Alive line readings as well.
Completely. And that perfect steampunk, those weird, whatever magnifying goggles he has on. And I was watching it today going like, why those goggles?
Right.
Is he looking at something far away? Is it a microscope thing? But they're so cool. And we brought up earlier, all that equipment was made by the guy who did it for the original Frankenstein movie. Yeah. And apparently he had it in his house.
Wow.
Yeah. He had just had it packed away there, and somehow Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder found out and they rented it from him to be in the movie. And I'm just curious, that I've always have been ever since every time I see one of these movies with those little bolts of electricity, those little zaps going between two terminals or on the spinning wheel thing, I'm like, how does that work?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
And also, it wasn't until I heard y'all talking about it on the podcast, like none of that's in the book, right?
No, it's barely a paragraph about the actual laboratory and the equipment and all of that stuff. Yeah, it's amazing.
Interesting. Because that's the way she gets out of explaining how it happened. Right. Like, how I did it is not in that one.
Exactly. There is no how I did it in the original text. Exactly. Yeah.
But now all that equipment is essential and seminal to every single, like, not just Frankenstein, but mad scientist lab. Like, that is the standard,
Totally.
Interesting.
That's the aesthetic, isn't it? And I guess this is the interesting thing, that by the mid-70s, that was already so iconic, I guess, right? The original Universal movie must have played and played and played so much to the point where people would have been very aware, I imagine, of all these visual references.
Yes,
right?
completely.
Yeah.
And I suspect that came by the time TV came around, became most popular in the early 50s. I'm sure they reran these movies constantly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they didn't have to pay residuals then. That didn't happen until the 60s.
Right.
So they were like, woohoo! Yeah.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
What do you think? And this is another kind of recurring theme we've talked about a lot throughout the book and the films is Victor Frankenstein is kind of a dick, right? I mean, really, he's kind of the monster of this story, not the monster, right? And
selfish egomaniac.
Yeah. Is that the case here as well? Do you think Frederick Frankenstein does he have many redeeming qualities? Do you like him as a character?
I do like him as a character. I like observing his journey. I don't think he's as much of a dick as Victor is, or Henry. Isn't his name Henry?
In the Universal, it's Henry, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I'm glad they went back to Victor, because Victor is so much more, fits the man more than Henry. They were trying to soften or sweeten him up or something.
I think so.
By having such a boy next door name. But I think it's great. I mean, he wants to do the right thing. He is passionate about life. He's like, I don't want to talk about death. I'm into life. That's what interests me. And then when he accepts his fate, he's like, yeah, this is life. Oh, right. This is what I'm into. I'm into life. I want to create life. And he tries to one of my very favorite things. It's been redone a lot, and I'm sure this wasn't the first time when he says to Inga and Igor Froblik, I'm going to go in there, and whatever I say, don't let me out. No matter how I plead and scream, don't let me out. And then he's like, just kidding, let me out. Get me the hell out of here. But then when he immediately was like, oh, I see a human in this monster. You're a good boy. And another thing I mean, my friends quote constantly, this is a mother's angel. So he loves the creature like a son, and he wants it to do well and to thrive. So that's more than Victor or Henry ever did.
Absolutely.
He wants to teach him how to sing and dance. Yeah. He wants to, make his Transylvania Broadway debut.
It's actually quite a beautiful father-son journey they go on, isn't it? Which you're absolutely right. We don't get that in the others, for sure. Yeah. So Peter Boyle as the monster then as well. Like, again, just one of the most beautiful portrayals of the monster, I think.
Completely. And I remember, like, when I was a kid, I was so much more into the women and the horror of it all. Like, I just wanted to watch those hilarious women that I loved.
Yeah. And
watching it more as an adult, an adult male actor, and watching these other adult male actors, I appreciate him so much more, and the subtlety with everything. And the fact that he does pull off this dance in those giant boots, and we mostly, I guess, a lot of us know him later from Everybody Loves Raymond Dad, where he's so funny, and he's really good. But the subtle little looks and little, like, tipping the hat a little, not tipping the hat, but just sort of the non-winking winks and everything. It's wonderful.
Love it. Yeah. And let's talk about the iconic moment, the putting on the Ritz moment as well, which again, there are lots of stories about this and how this occurred, right? I think there was something in Mel Brooks's childhood that he kind of joked about in this vein, but then he didn't want to put it in the movie, but Gene Wilder insisted it did go in the movie, I think, right? They kind of clashed over this.
They clashed over it, is my understanding, and it did eventually go in, and then Mel wanted to cut it until he saw the audience reaction. That's what I have heard.
Yeah.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits?
I don't know about the childhood thing. Is that just something he loved from childhood?
There was something that he did as a joke with his friends. Like, apparently, this is what I read, where Mel Brooks used to pretend to be Frankenstein's creature as like a bit with his friends, and there was a moment where they had a little joke about him performing Putting on the Ritz, and I think he mentioned this in passing at one point to Gene Wilder, and Gene Wilder thought that was brilliant and thought they should put it in the script, and then Mel Brooks was like, no, that's not actually that funny, and then all of that. So,
well, one of my sadnesses is I used to have the DVD with the commentary on it, and I was looking for it for this rewatch, and I could not find it, so somebody made off with it. Now, luckily, it's on the internet archive, but I've heard the commentary before, but it's been a long time ago. I forgot how long it is, how they really do like a whole number. Like, in my memory, it was pretty short, but the hilarious thing to me is, like, the minute the monster stops, sees the light bulb pop, and he gets scared of the fire, they immediately turn on it. Just immediately. And these men have full heads of full cabbages under their seats. They're just slinging produce. These men and women in tuxedos and evening gowns somehow had decided, you know what, though? What I'm going to do is sneak in like a bushel basket of kale and lettuce and Swiss chard. And the second things go remotely south, I'm going to shot put it right at the heads of these performers. Of course, as an actor, that's my nightmare, so it really stuck with me, but it's hilarious to watch it now.
It's so good. I mean, and it goes on a bit, right? They commit to the bit. It's a full musical number. What do you think of the scene generally? You know, like, do you hold it up there as one of the best moments of the film? You know, are you glad they kept it in?
I'm glad it was kept in. I think it's really funny. It's definitely become iconic. It's not my favorite part, but I do appreciate it, and I appreciated it a lot more on this most recent rewatch. You know, that's the thing about this movie too. It is one of those that will keep giving and serving, and you'll see new things every time. I know I have, and as you change in age and are, you know, lucky enough to get old, I'm sure I'll see more and more. You know, it's just like many masterpieces.
It's brilliant. I love it too. It is one of those that makes me laugh more each time, actually, which is strange because it's the clip also that is shown the most in clip shows or whatever, right? It's kind of the moment everyone knows from this movie in a way.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love it. And Madeline, you mentioned Madeline Kahn, but Elizabeth is so good in this, right?
God.
Because at the beginning of the film, she's just the wife that's left behind, and then as she then slowly emerges as the bride, right?
Yes,
it is
completely.
fantastic. She's so good.
It's such a beautiful arc. Like, I rewatching it this time, I was like, oh, she's not in it as much as I remember because she made such a big impact on me.
Yeah.
From Paper Moon, where she was nominated for an Oscar for, and from What's Up, Doc, which was her first movie, and then other things I had seen her in, I guess. And, you know, she was supposed to be Gooch in the legendarily horrible Lucille Ball musical version of Mame in 1974.
Oh, wow.
And because she came to the table read, like, sort of figuring it out. And Lucy was so like, I arrived fully formed and I know what I'm going to do. And was such an old battle axe about everything. Do I do old Lucille Ball and drag sometimes? Sometimes I do.
Oh, incredible. Incredible.
Peep my Instagram so I know a lot about 70s, 80s drunk Lucy. But she fired Madeline freaking Kahn after the table read because she didn't like what she was doing. And Lucy really blew it on that one. So anyway, Madeline Kahn is a master. And she just, all her little things, her little bits, and I know some of them were written, but some of them were like, no tongues, was like an ad lib from her.
That's so
and
good.
just the whole, like, the thing makes me laugh so hard. And I had forgotten. And when at the end, she's seeing him off on the train, his fiance, as we hear later. And, you know, not on the lips, the hair, it was just set. Taffeta, dear. No, taffeta, you're crying. It wrinkles.
Now give me a kiss and say goodnight. No tongues. Good night, darling. Good night, sweetheart. I love you. You love me? I love you, honey. Sweet dreams, darling. Good night. Don't let the bed bugs bite.
It gets to the degree that she's so the untouchable, frigid, non-sexual, non-demonstrative, like, fiance. And when he blows her a kiss and she jumps out of the way, like the blown kiss will scar her on the head. It's so funny. Oh my God.
It's so
and I bet you anything that was her. She was so ingenious. We lost her way too young and she was one of my very favorites. Yeah. But just everything she says, oh, here we go. I remember this as a little gay boy and also as a gay man where, like, he's towering over her. And I only had a vague idea then what sex was like. And they've already brought up he would have such a big Schwanstücke.
Right.
When his sausage, when she's with the sausage, that was Terry. And then later when he's like zip and she goes, woof.
Yeah.
That's... In fact, you know, on some of the gay hookup apps, someone woofs you. That's a thing.
Oh, really?
There's just like, here's who woofed you. Yeah, and I always think of Madeline Kahn. Yeah, so also it's a happy ending. Both couples end up happily married. And I didn't realize it. I know I'm jumping all over the place. I didn't realize again until this most recent that, like, it's about men with big D's satisfying their ladies. And that's what it's the end of it. It's just like, hey, they both are very well endowed and happy marriages ensue. Everybody wins.
It's amazing. And that stuff is really funny. I love the ending. I've heard criticisms of that initial sex scene because it's almost initially set up to be a rape scene, right? Where then actually, because he's got a big dick, she loves it, right? And
yes, you are right. But and also, I've been there. My point is that it's just like I remember, but she also, and I'm not justifying any sort of sexual assault or rape or anything, of course. But when she's just sort of like, you watch it again, and from the jump in that scene, she's excited already, and she's kind of being like, what are you going to do to me?
Yeah.
What? And it's kind of like, I want you to do something to me. So it's not quite so cut and dry, and it doesn't feel quite so rapey. Thank God. And then also something that I still do, I'm sure I probably shouldn't, is when she comes out of the bathroom and she's all full Bride of Frankenstein hair.
That's so good. Yes. So good.
There are gentlemen who have seen me do that coming out of the bathroom naked. Sadly, I have to. You're welcome, fellas. God, I love it so much.
I love it. It's so good. I mean, but it's true, like, I think, I initially think of this movie, I think of Gene Wilder, but there are so many funny women in this movie, actually, right? And actually, that's
Mel Brooks.
Depressingly not that common in a lot of big mainstream Hollywood comedies, right? And
completely, and especially in the 70s. And Mel served those ladies well. They weren't just the wife or the pretty assistant. They got their own laughs. They were very funny. They got to show their stuff because, I mean, I watch a lot of old classic movies and a lot of monster movies and old horror movies and all kinds of movies, but you just now... I wasn't aware until the last 20 years. You look at the credits and it's like, it's all white men, white men, old white men. And so few, and maybe two of the names in the credits will be women. But yeah, think One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. There's like, not that that's it has its funny moments, but there's Louise Fletcher, Nurse Ratched, the most horrible one in the world, and then a couple of prostitutes, and that's or like Good Time Girls, and that's it. It's all men. Like that was so common.
Yeah.
And Chinatown, Faye Dunaway, her daughter and her sister. Diane Ladd dies right away, and men. Like it's just Network. There's I could go on and on and on. But Mel Brooks in the 70s really served these women well. Blazing Saddles was mostly men and Madeline Kahn, but Blazing Saddle, Young Frankenstein really corrects that. Because as a kid, I was always more interested in watching women. They just fascinated me more. Even though I was gay, I was just like, I think ladies are funnier and more interesting. And I still do.
Absolutely. And actually, again, I sort of always forget every time I watch this that Gene Hackman is in this movie as well, right? As well, which is great.
Because what's the story? He played golf or tennis or something with Gene Wilder, and he was like, come on down. That's another thing. This kind of, not spoiled, but it kind of... what's the word I'm looking for? It kind of misled me because the hermit's not in Frankenstein. It's in Bride of Frankenstein.
That's right. That's right. But that is a big part of the book actually as well. So weirdly, and we talked a bit about this. Bride of Frankenstein is actually more faithful in some regards to the book than the original Frankenstein is, because there is this whole section when the creature escapes by himself and then he finds a kind blind man who is kind to him because he can't see what he looks like and blah blah blah.
Right.
So that's part of Bride, but it's also part of the novel. Yeah.
And also to see Gene Hackman do comedy, because in the 70s it was like super, French Connection, The Conversation, the Poseidon Adventure, which I was also a huge disaster movie kid. I still am. And he was like, the main male lead in that. It was not a comedy.
No, and that's right, isn't it? Apparently that's what he said to Gene Wilder playing golf. He was like, I want to try doing some comedy, basically. So he was just the dramatic actor, wasn't he, at this point? Yeah. So it's great. This is the thing. It's like, it is an embarrassment of riches, isn't it, with everyone involved in this. Everyone is kind of top of their game, from the cinematographer to the production, designers to the costume designers, the sound,
the score.
Unbelievable, right? Unbelievable.
Every little character part, all those people, every single one of them, including a man named Clement von Frankenstein, who has a small part in this. And my day job before I became just an actor, when I first got here, I worked in commercial casting for about 8 years, and Clement von Frankenstein was this lovely little man who would come in. I think he was English, but he was descended from wherever Mary Shelley got the name from, the House of Frankenstein. And he was this nice, amiable little white-haired guy who, was just delightful to be around and just seemed to be enjoying his life, and clearly was for money. At least he seemed he was.
This is amazing. But so this is one of the sort of extras in the film, right? He's like, is he one of the angry mob or something? Is that right?
I forget which one. It's in the IMDb trivia, but he might be at the town hall meeting.
That's it. He's at the town hall meeting. And like you say, this is a genuine a part of family house Frankenstein, right? Yeah. Incredible.
And just also, while we're on the topic, Danny Goldman, who plays Dr. Frankenstein, the student at the beginning.
Yes.
He was an actor. He's in the movie MASH. He was in tons of stuff. And he was also a commercial casting director. That was his day job. And I knew him and would ask him to talk about things. And he was also R.I.P. He was a character. All of us that knew Danny knew that, but he was very, I learned a lot from him, and he was a really incredible human being too. Oh. So it was nice to, and Monty Landis, I was looking at the credits. I'm like, I used to see Monty Landis come in. He's one of the gravediggers. I had a couple of wild experiences with Cloris Leachman before she went to, The Great Beyond.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
I was at a luncheon with Terry Garr, and my sister was getting this literary prize. It's a long story at the Huntington Gardens, and she was there, and I'm still kicking myself I didn't go introduce myself and just tell her how much I loved her. Yeah.
God, that's so cool. I mean, what an absolute lineup of legends, right? Just complete legends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, there you go.
Including Kenneth Mars. We haven't even talked about
Oh my God, we haven't talked about Kenneth Mars, who always sort of seems a bit like he's just walked off of sort of Dr. Strangelove or something, I think,
completely.
Right, in this movie. Like, really strange.
Also, how did it take me until this last rewatch to see that he has the monocle over the eye patch? I don't know why that didn't, or maybe I thought it was all of a piece, but like he made the choice to do a monocle over an eye patch. It's genius. That dart scene.
The dart scene is one of my favorite scenes. It's so
me too.
So good.
And he's like, when he pulls his on his gloves and all his, it's a masterclass of physical comedy, what he does with his arm. Mm-hmm. And that character is also in Bride or Son. That character's in Son of Frankenstein.
Yes.
Yeah, not in the original. It's in lighting oh my God, it's that whole thing with the darts. It's just genius. It's genius.
It is incredible. Do you think that is there a connection between comedy and horror in what makes a good comedy and what makes a good horror? Like, do they share a lot of DNA, do you think?
I think they do. When I think about how I experience both, it's that build up, release thing of with comedy. It's like set up. This thing's going to happen. Oh my God, he's going to fall off the side of the building. Oh my God, he doesn't see the banana peel there or whatever. And then there we go. Yeah. And then in horror, it's like, oh, they don't know the killer's right outside the window. We see them in the mirror, but they don't see them. And oh my God, scream. So it's that build up, release thing, which is also, like I said earlier, kind of in the erotic things. And I'm sure as humans, that's all blended together down in our guts and souls and private areas, that sort of like build up release thing. So it's all
totally. And actually, there is, I've, a lot of people have talked about this and written about this, the fact that horror and comedy and porn, they are three genres that are often kind of considered slightly inferior forms of art.
Yeah.
And they are the three genres that, provoke physical reactions in us, right, in one way or another. And it's almost like we don't want our bodies to respond to what we're seeing. Right. We want to be intellectually stimulated, but not physically stimulated, right? And it's so interesting that comedy and horror and like, a porn as well, they all have that kind of like, we don't like
it's
that.
Vulnerability. If you're sitting and watching a proper drama or even like an action movie, which is some physical response because you get excited or you are not at risk of screaming or screaming with laughter or, sex screaming with orgasm or whatever. You don't want to see that vulnerability out in public. So I think that's why it's kind of like that. So and I know you can see a really good drama and cry, but a lot of people don't like to cry either in public.
No.
So that is
actually, if a film is accused of being too sentimental, that's another criticism.
Exactly.
Right? It's so interesting that
manipulative.
People don't like it when films manipulate them. Yeah, and it's so interesting because isn't that literally what cinema is, right? Like, I think it's funny that people don't like that in cinema.
Yeah, tell me the story. Give me the experience. It goes back to sitting around the fire, telling the story, whether it's a ghost story or, an oral history. You want to be taken in. And people did get more sophisticated later and could tell when, like, Steven Spielberg's pulling my strings, and they resent 100%. Being manipulated, which I understand that part too. But at the same time, just jump in. Like, I jump in the pool. Don't put your foot in.
I love it.
Cannonball.
I love it. Make me feel something.
Yes.
Right? I love it. Make me feel uncomfortable. Make me feel fucking weird.
Yes.
Make me feel conflicted about how I'm feeling. I love all of the movies that do that to me.
And also, Mike, don't you experience as I get older, and you as a film person and a journalist and a writer of film and a lover of film and a podcaster of film, and me as an actor who has been in stuff, or I need more and more for it to, like, immerse me completely. Like, I don't want to know anything going in. I don't want anyone to tell me anything. We know too much about how the sausage is made, so it's harder for me, at least, to have that experience that childlike wonder and fear and laughter and awe as a child, and I want more and more of that. Like, recently Sinners gave me that. Like, that's something that gave me that feeling.
Yes.
But it's so rare these days.
Yeah.
And I know part of that's on me because I watch so much stuff, and I've just been in enough stuff to know, like, oh, wow, they were losing the light, or this was like, God, how long did that take to shoot, or how did they get that shot? I wouldn't take me out of my head and put me in my heart and my guts and my junk, you know? Put me there.
Absolutely. And I think, again, going back to Young Frankenstein, that's what this movie has. There is an immersion in this film. Like, even though there are so many legends about the making of this and everything else, you can't help but just get completely immersed in it, I think, because of the way this movie looks and sounds and feels.
It's completely seductive. It's seductive.
It really is. It really is. So finally, how do you think it holds up? Do you think there's anything, and this is often the case with comedy, especially comedy from the 70s, is there anything that is dated about it, do you think, at this stage?
I don't think so, because I think that so much of the comedy is the timing, the rhythm, the jokes, go back to vaudeville and probably beyond.
Yeah.
But it's the best possible version of that. What I like is, as we mentioned, like these incredible comedic female performances, not just one, but three, you know, and in the same movie with sort of equal, not as much screen time as the fellas, but pretty equal screen time with each other and a good, and important parts of the movie.
Yeah.
I think that really holds up well. Yeah. The rapey stuff is, I can see people having a sensitivity to that, but it's also intense. And of course, Mel Brooks did not mean it that way. Just how, like, when he does some gay stuff, he doesn't mean it derogatorily or harmfully. I think, I can't speak for women, obviously, but like, I think it really holds up. I think it holds up beautifully. And maybe part of that is all my emotional attachment to it and it being a comedy primer from third grade for me.
Yeah.
But I think it holds up.
I think it does too. I think it's just so beautifully made, isn't it? It's just so impeccably made.
It is.
That I think it absolutely, there's a timeless quality to it, I think, completely. Do you think it belongs up there in lists, which it so often is, you know, alongside the likes of Airplane and whatever else, as like Some Like It Hot, as like the greatest comedies ever made?
100%. How could it not? I mean, I guess there's a way where it could be. There are some things that came later, like, I don't know if you've seen things like Holy Moses or Yellowbeard, other big speaking of Mel Brooks, like History of the World Part 1, it's pretty good. It's not a masterpiece like this, but like a lot of those tried with these all-star comedy casts, and they kind of I enjoy them because there's always moments I enjoy in those movies and performances, like as Cloris or Madeline's in there. I will watch it, you know, just for them.
Yeah.
Some of those flopped and flunked. So, and people have forgotten about them, right?
Yeah.
So they don't realize that this, even at the time, this was such a rare, beautiful jewel, and it absolutely belongs up there. Yes.
Totally. And you know, even when I announced that I was doing this season and I was doing Frankenstein movies, so many people, just horror fans and listeners of this podcast, said my favorite Frankenstein movie is Young Frankenstein, right? So I think that also is kind of proof that people, even just horror lovers, film lovers, they love this movie just as a piece of art as well.
Yes.
I think, you know?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, there you go. Well, thank you, Sam. This has been so much fun to discuss.
Yeah, I loved it.
I've got a couple of final wrap-up questions for you. First of all, what is your favourite sort of movie in this whole kind of mad science subgenre, would you say? Do you have a favourite?
100%. Rocky Horror Picture Show, always and
Oh,
forever.
yeah. Amazing.
For all the reasons you can imagine, but completely up and down, Tim Curry, Frankenfurter, all of it. You know, completely. That film. I mean, speaking of kind of having confusing physical feelings watching a movie, I mean, there's a lot in that film, and even Tim Curry himself. I'm like, oh my god. You know, unbelievable. It's
unbelievable.
Filled with feelings we don't understand. Seeing that on the first time, some of them I did understand, and some of them I didn't. And you know, it hit me exactly at the right time, like seeing it freshman year of college in the theater.
Perfect.
It was just. It still is. Another one memorized, watch it over and over again. I think it's fantastic. I know a lot of people like, it was so bad, it's good. No, it's just good. It's just good.
Really good. And finally then, the final big question. What's your favourite horror movie, Sam?
How dare you make me limit it to one? I absolutely will not be boxed in by you, Mr. Muncer. I have a few, and I'll go through them quickly. I made a list. It's not at all complete, but it's just like what popped out of me. In terms of recent horror movies, Hereditary, Get Out, the host, the one that's all on Zoom, incredible. And The Invitation, which I live in an area that's like where they are, and I know those people, and it chilled my blood. In terms of classics from my childhood, like Halloween, how it made me feel, Poltergeist, and then Burnt Offerings, because I love Betty Davis, Karen Black, Oliver Reed. But Phantasm was the one in high school that was the one that gave me the most genuine nightmares. Because usually horror movies don't give me nightmares. That gave me nightmares. And then like everything else. So those are just a few of my faves.
Phantasm's a great choice. And that there is something genuinely nightmarish about that movie, isn't there, I think? Incredible.
Also, it's the same house in Burnt Offerings and in Phantasm, which I'm kind of riveted by. Yeah.
Love that. Love that.
Home.
Well, Sam, thank you so much. I've loved this. Just remind people before you go where they can find sort of your stuff online, your podcast. Where can people come find you? I'm
on Instagram is where you can primarily find me at the Sam Pancake, the THE Sam Pancake. All the stuff I do will be posted on there. My podcast is called Sam Pancake Presents the Monday Afternoon Movie. And that's about TV movies, mostly horror from like the late 60s now through like the 90s. Yes. And within my Patreon there, my friend Sarah Burns, who's an actor you would totally recognize, she and I started a new Patreon bonus called Sam and Sarah Watch a Bonkers Movie. Because I don't get to cover all these. There are a lot of movies that people think were TV movies, like The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane, these horror movies, or It's Alive, or The Baby, but they weren't. So now I'm going to cover those theatrical releases that I am obsessed with. It's absolutely crazy bonkers movies like and stuff, and the frogs, all that, Food of the Gods.
Oh my God.
So those are two podcasts I do.
Incredible. Sam, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's been a dream come true.
A big thank you to the brilliant Sam Pancake. Loved having Sam on the podcast. He will be back again next season, hopefully. So, before we move into the second half of this week's episode, just going to take a minute to preview a brand new podcast, part of the Evolution of Horror network that is now available for you to subscribe to. If you're enjoying this week's podcast and enjoying talking about classic comedy, then you may enjoy this. Here is a little trailer for a brand new podcast hosted by me and comedian Susan Kalman called Carry On Up the Podcast.
Oh, hello. Now, come on, stop messing about.
Gentlemen, really? My, but you got a big one.
I'm from Texas, man. We all got big ones down there.
Oh, saucy.
You'll see a beast.
Come on, let's go for a walk. There's a smashing front here.
There's a smashing one there and all.
Hello and welcome to Carry On Up the Podcast. I'm Mike Muncer.
And I'm Susan Kalman. And in this podcast, we'll be revisiting one of the silliest, most beloved and maligned comedy franchises of all time. The Carry On films.
Crying tonight!
As unabashed Carry On fans, Susan and I will be camping, cruising and screaming our way through every film in the Carry On series.
From the sublime...
Infamy! Infamy! They've all got it in for me!
To the ridiculous.
What's your name?
Jimmy Nookie.
We'll be celebrating the cream of the crop of British talent involved in the films and exploring its impact on comedy in the decades that followed.
We'll be tracking the social and cultural changes in Britain across its 20-year run, from the post-war 50s...
Colonel, whatever's going on?
...to the swinging 60s...
Oh, but sir, we were told to bring the minimum of clothing.
...to the smutty 70s.
There was a young fellow called Red who went with a girl in a hedge when along came his wife with a big carving knife and cut off his meat in two veins.
And we'll be debating which movies still hold up and which are, to put it politely, of their time.
Oh, that's very good. Carry on chopping.
So, stop messing about. Join us on this journey and subscribe to Carry On Up the Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Now it's time for a discussion of something quite different. Andy Warhol's Flesh for Frankenstein. There's a lot to discuss here. Joining me to discuss this movie, a very long-time friend of the podcast, one of the OG Evolution of Horror guests. He was here, I think, on our second ever episode, and he's been back every season since. He was co-host of the Arrow Video podcast, but he is also an award-winning makeup and special effects artist, and he is the man who has seen more obscure cult movies than I think anyone I have ever met. Welcome to the podcast, Dan Martin. Hello, Dan.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me back.
Lovely to have you back. It's been a while. How are things? You're keeping busy?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, the world's on fire, but we keep working.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Got some exciting stuff going on with some repeat collaborators. I can't really go into it too much, but some very, very exciting projects on the horizon. I guess the only thing is that, like, as the jobs get a bit bigger, they take up more time, so there's less of them per year. And looking back at, sort of 10, 15 years ago, I'd do like 20 films a year.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Whereas now, maybe it's like maybe a dozen, maybe half a dozen. But like, I think we're going to be doing like one for the next year now. So
wow, so it's something big, basically, right?
Yeah, it's exciting.
Love that. That's very cool. And probably since we last spoke as well, the Arrow Video podcast came to an end as well. So it's going to be nice to hear. It's going to be nice for people to hear you back talking about movies again, right?
Yeah, I must say I miss it. I was texting with Sam just the other day. Obviously, Sam and I are different continents now, but yeah, it is. It was such a staple for such a long time.
Yeah,
and it was really difficult because between our availability across the oceans, and Arrow with its new overlords taking a slightly different direction,
right?
It just kind of naturally came to an end. But we're remain cautiously optimistic that maybe we'll get to do some other bits and bobs for them in the near future.
Excellent. Love that. Amazing. So on this series of the podcast, we're looking at kind of sort of mad science, I suppose. So we've been doing a lot of Frankenstein, man-made monsters, that kind of thing. What are your thoughts generally on this kind of subgenre, first of all, Dan? Like, are you a fan of this kind of, I guess, this kind of sci-fi, technology, horror kind of mesh?
Yeah, I do. I really like it. And like, I think the sort of the demarcation lines around it depend entirely on how like strict you are and what details of it you consider to be important, because it can be a very broad genre or subgenre,
right?
But then also it can be very restrictive depending on how fastidious you are and how like slavish you are to the source text, I guess. But then, like, a lot of adaptations of Frankenstein have been in no way slavish to the source text.
I know.
As per what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. I know. It's been really fun, actually, going through these varied Frankenstein adaptations. Frankenstein, I mean, it's been so interesting. I mean, we spent a few weeks just on that. Obviously, the novel, the Universal era, the Hammer era, Kenneth Branagh's one, and a few others here and there as well. What is it about that story of Frankenstein, do you think, that kind of endures and kind of lends itself to so many adaptations?
I feel like it kind of... It's the perfect 4-quadrant movie, to use a marketing term.
Yeah.
Like when you're... Now that everyone's much more like sales savvy, when you pitch a movie, they talk about like the prospective audience for it, and the quadrants are age and gender.
Right.
So it's male, female, old, young. Are the 4 quadrants, and obviously it breaks down finer than that, and there's genre tastes and so on. But I think that Frankenstein is so perennial because, like, you've got on one hand, you've got this timeless tale that resonates with like teenagers and emos.
Yeah.
Because it's ostensibly about an anti-hero who's like, I didn't ask to be born. Stop telling me I'm doing it wrong.
Exactly.
And on the other hand, you can appeal to people who think science is bad.
Absolutely. I know. I love that. And I guess it's also proven to be resonant too, because our fear of technology certainly hasn't gone away, right? I feel like right now we're living in an era where people are, existentially afraid of AI and what that could, inflict upon us and people's jobs and livelihoods and everything else, right? How do you feel about it? Are you a very techie person, Dan? Are you more of a technophobe? Like, what's your kind of relationship?
No, I love technology and I love development. Like, I like learning a new skill. I like a weird thing I couldn't do before, adding another tool to the toolbox, like all that stuff. I love a gadget. I love a process. The big film I mentioned, the budget that I'm working on is so big that at one point I realized I was going to have to add an additional line into the spreadsheet between every line that represented an effect so that I could attribute staff like numbers to different processes. And there were so many lines in this thing, and my computer was groaning under the weight of a spreadsheet, which is fucking ridiculous. That the idea of manually going right click, add row above, right click, add row above, just filled me with like mortal dread, because repetition and boredom like are my kryptonite. So instead I learnt how to write AppleScript.
Oh wow, okay.
And I just wrote myself a little applet that could do it for me. And I just pressed a button, and then I went and made a cup of coffee, and I came back and had done it.
Oh my God. Okay, the dream. There we go. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like all men of a certain age, I have recently got into Home Assistant, the automation system in my house. So like I do love all of that stuff. And like the thing is, I find I'm not innately averse to the concept of AI. Like and by that I mean AI as it exists at the moment, not the general thing. I just think that the problem is it's in the hands of twats.
Yes,
like it's being misused.
Yes,
I mean it's not my joke, and it feels very obvious. But the idea that we've invented we wanted robots that would do the washing up so we could paint. And we've made robots that paint, and now we're going to be expected to do the washing up. So I'm very in favour of things like universal basic income and a robot tax, because what is a robot workforce if not the end game of taking the means of production away from the worker?
For sure, yeah.
And you've got people like Peter Thiel over in the States, who's like a proper villain. Talking about using humans that don't contribute to society as a source of biofuel, like burning people. Like that's fucked up. This is like he's the fifth richest man in America, I think.
Right.
He's one of Trump's big advisors. It's horrifying. So yeah, like the horror of fiction, where the thing that scared people was the unknown, and the idea that like, what else could happen? Like, everything's possible. The world is amazing and big and full of wonder, and some of that wonder is scary.
Yeah.
Whereas now we've just got, like, nerds ruining stuff.
Absolutely.
So, like, yeah, I'm not innately against the idea of AI as a concept. I think data scraping art is bad. I think I've always been slightly on the fence about intellectual property anyway, but if we're going to have it in the system, these guys don't get a fucking pass.
No.
Like, not these guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that, like, if you make under a certain amount a year, copyright doesn't affect you. Like, you can do what you want. Fuck off. Like, because, like, that's the system. We've baked all this discrepancy, all this inequality into the system, and these people are just like taking, like, there are people out there who can't afford power to heat their homes or to cool their homes, and then at the same time you've got we're paying wind farms not to operate because of a subsidy organization that we've got going on in this country. They're still subsidizing fossil fuels in the States, and yet these AI like data centers that they're building all over the States and trying to build over here are just sucking up all the water, sucking up all the power. It's incredibly it's incredibly divisive. It's incredibly unequal.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I think that the difference between the evil science of Frankenstein versus the evil science of now is that the evil science of Frankenstein feels really quaint. By comparison.
It does. And I suppose it goes back to that idea of the age-old story with all of these is the real monster is the human being, right? Wielding this technology. That's the thing, right?
Exactly.
Going back to Frankenstein. So, so there you go. That is really interesting. Well, I'm excited to discuss this movie with you, Dan, because I had never seen this movie before, and you emailed me. I sort of asked you to come on and said, what would you want to talk about? And this was one of the first titles you mentioned. So I'm excited to discuss it with you. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about Flesh for Frankenstein from 1973.
If you succeed in finding such a single-minded men, our chances are very good. That the male we create will fall in love with my female zombie. They will mate, and she will bear me the children I want.
Dan, first of all, just set us up. Give us for people who don't know, give us a quick plot synopsis of this film.
Well, I feel it's reductive to describe the Frankenstein of it all, although I do love the fact that it is a Frankenstein movie. It's not a Frankenstein's creature movie. It's very much about Frankenstein. A young and terminally confused about how horny he is, Udo Kier, goes out into the peasant population to escape his sister wife and, to put it tactfully, do a head count and build a master race. It's very messy. It's like if Frankenstein really wanted, like, because it's also Bride of Frankenstein. It's both movies.
Yes.
And it really is, like, without getting too far ahead in what we're talking about, the whole film was kind of conceived as almost like a pastiche of extreme cinema.
Right.
So it's taken every aspect that you could imagine as being transgressive and counterculture, and it's kind of mashed it all together. So it's like you take a sip of juice and, oh no, that's undiluted cordial, but of like perverse cinema.
Yes.
So like it's got incest, it's got necrophilia, it's got like murder. It's got Udo Kier staring at someone's penis and being cross that they're not getting an erection. It's got everything you could possibly want.
It really does. What a fun movie. I had no idea what to expect, and
I
was like, where has this movie been all my life? I really want to screen it to an audience because this just must be so much fun to watch with an audience, I think, this film, you know?
A friend of mine has a 35mm print of the 3D version of this movie.
God, well, that's what I want to screen.
And the special lens that you need to be able to show it. They also, for the projector.
Oh my God. Maybe let's talk offline, Dan, about that, because I genuinely would like to do that. So when did you first discover this film? It sounds like you're a big fan of it, right? But what are your kind of overall thoughts, and when did you come to it?
Yeah, well, so the friend I mentioned is Tony Clark, who used to own Psychotronic Video in Camden, who I would regularly mention on the Arrow podcast. And I first met Tony when I must have been about 15 or 16, coming up to London, going to Camden. And I discovered that there's this little like shop in the corner of Camden Market, and if you ask right, they've got the video nasties. Like that was was sort of how I first met him. And a few years later, I'd take a weekend job there. I'd work there on the Saturdays. But I wasn't living in London. I'd travel up to London, I'd have a bit of money saved up. I'd go and check out a couple of comic book shops or whatever. But then really the main destination was going to Psychotronic. And I'd go there and I'd just hang out, as a lot of people did, and just chat shit about film. And I was surrounded by people who'd seen so much more than I had. I'd seen fucking nothing compared to these people. And Flesh of Frankenstein was this title that was quite early on, like sort of like I was told about it. And initially I had access to it through them, but I didn't watch it because of this 3D version. And I was like, well, I want to see the 3D version if I'm going to. And that never materialized. I wasn't able to see that. And I think they've played it a couple of times in 3D at the BFI, and I've never been able to be able to see it. So I've never seen it on the cinema screen in 3D. I have a 3D projector at home, and I have the Severin box set. So I have the Vinegar Syndrome box set. So it is Vinegar Syndrome. Severin did, because Severin and Vinegar Syndrome got one each. So Severin got Blood for Dracula. And Vinegar Syndrome got Flesh of Frankenstein. So I've seen it in 3D on that, and I watched it in 2D because the colours are better. When I rewatched it for this, and then I rewatched all of the big moments, the big 3D moments in anaglyphic 3D again as well. But it was it was amazing. Seeing it as a teenager, it's a really exciting movie because quite aside from the incredible locations and the beautiful scenery and architecture of Italy where it was filmed, and this like garish, larger than life, very technicolor, like visual, most of which is lost in the anaglyphic. It was because it was never shown. It was silver retention. I think it's called silver retention. I may get the terminology wrong. 3D. So they had two prints playing through, I think, a polarized lens that would alternate the polarization. So you get full color in the 3D in the cinema. But then when it came out on home video, very briefly in 3D, it was red and green anaglyphic, which basically means you're watching a black and white movie.
Right, yeah.
Which is not the best way to watch this film because it's beautiful. It's really sumptuous. The other thing is it's really easy to sort of like dismiss it as trash because it's pretending to be trash.
Right.
So, I mean, if you think about the origin of the film, even though it's got Warhol's name on it, he's really just a sort of like a figurehead for the project.
Well, this was going to be what I was going to ask you. I was so confused by this because I was trying to find Warhol's name in the credits or anything of this film. He's not in any way involved?
Well, so he lent his name to it and he got paid for lending his name to it. So he gave it, but his name was kind of like a stamp of counterculture.
Right,
so in the same way that you might see like, you know, Guillermo del Toro Presents or Clive Barker Presents, or like someone with a big enough name can literally just say, yeah, I approve of this. And just their approval is enough. And he did visit set a couple of times and he was interviewed about it. And someone said to him at the time, what did you do to like, what was your involvement? And he went, I went to the parties.
Of course.
That was it. So like, Morrissey had been directing for The Factory and he was kind of like a partner in it, like pretty important. He kind of looked after all of the film output for Warhol. So they were really close already and he'd done work for him and projects for him already. But it was Roman Polanski who's kind of the originator of this. So he had a financier who wanted to do projects in 3D because this was a new technology. A new version of 3D. And he'd gone to Polanski and Polanski had said, I know who would make a fucking amazing 3D version of Frankenstein. And so he went to Morrissey and was like, hey, you should do a 3D version of Frankenstein. I can get it financed. Quite when Warhol's name got attached to it, I don't know. I mean, it feels like a no-brainer because they were very close friends and it helped with the marketing of it. But it absolutely went gangbusters. And apparently, there's conflicting sources on this, but apparently originally Blood for Dracula was going to be 3D as well. But Morrissey decided that he wanted a different tone for it and it wasn't going to be as like garish and over the top and like kind of camp. And so he felt like it didn't really like merit it. And I don't think he's said it, but I think it probably slowed him down a lot, like working with it. Because he went into Flesh for Frankenstein basically without a script. He had the story kind of plotted out, but he was writing dialogue like at night for the next day. So like people were being handed pages they'd never seen before to read because that was kind of how he did stuff at The Factory. Right. But at The Factory, they're in New York and everyone speaks English and he can just kind of vibe with people. But now he's over in Italy and he's got a much bigger crew and they're shooting in 3D with much more complicated cameras. And he can't just be like, oh, just play with it, just have some fun. Yeah. Because they don't speak English, a lot of the people.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a crazy production.
So Paul Morrissey basically, so he was a friend of Andy Warhol's, right? That's the connection essentially, in that he worked.
Well, like a colleague. Yeah. Because he ran the film department of The Factory for Andy Warhol.
Got it. Okay, amazing. And so tell me, because this movie does seem. It does seem trashy, to be honest, right? So, but you said it's kind of deliberately going for something here. So it is like, what is it? Is this a pastiche? Is this a parody? Is this a satire? Like, what's it going for?
Blood for Dracula is much more overtly satirical.
Yes.
This is almost into like the sort of Carry On Screaming kind of area. It's weird because I'd be reluctant to call it a comedy because I don't think he wants you to laugh at the film. I think he wants the film, and this is, kind of the definition of satire, I guess. He wants the film to cast a light on the absurdity of what people were offended by.
Right.
So he's literally like saying, like, it's kind of it's kind of Human Centipede too. It's like you want fucking trash. Here's, trash from the Warhol factory. Like he was deliberately being provocative, and he was kind of having fun with it, because it is so absurd. It's like if you wrote down everything in the script and were like, is there a choice we could make that makes it more transgressive?
Yeah,
it's like, not really.
No. It's and so because of that, you can't believe what you're seeing from beginning to end, basically, right? And especially when, like me, you go into it not knowing what this is and just assuming it's going to be a Frankenstein story. And like you said, it's not really that. It's not really that. You know?
Yeah, but the thing is, and this is kind of what I was getting at earlier. You can, depending on where you draw the lines, it's very much a Frankenstein story. He's
creating some people, I suppose.
He's creating. He wants to create life.
Yeah.
He does so, and they don't obey him.
Mm-hmm.
They are his downfall.
Yep.
They are sad about it. They're sad about living.
Yes.
The bit at the end where, like, I assume we're doing spoilers. With this.
Yeah.
The bit at the end where the creature is like, says to D'Alessandro, if I let you down, what next? And he's like, oh, well, we'll get you sorted out. And he's like, no, I must die here. And then he just lies down, and D'Alessandro's like, mate, I'm hanging from the fucking ceiling.
Yeah.
And so it's the most like down ending possible, because his friend who's been trying to rescue him for this entire film is just left to starve to death, hanging from the ceiling of this chateau.
Yeah, insane. It is absolutely insane. And the dialogue, I was howling at some of the lines of dialogue. I mean, like, to know death, you must fuck life in the gallbladder is incredible, right?
It's very, very much a fan favorite. I love that. It's terrific. I think, you know what? I think that is the first line from this I heard, because I guarantee I was told that line when I was being first told about the film.
To know death, Otto, you have to fuck life in the gallbladder.
But like, I think the thing is that there's those are like crazy lines, and as I said, he was writing the dialogue kind of as he went.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that he was treating the dialogue in the same way that he was treating the sort of the content and the structure, and he'd just be like, "Here's a fucking mad thing you can say, Keir." Like, there's another line when they're trying to find the perfect like male specimen to complete the monster, the creature, although he calls them his zombies. Him and Otto, who I love. Otto is one of my favourites about this. I love his fucking constant side eye all the way through. His expressions are incredible. But he they're in the bushes outside a brothel, and the aim of their it's D'Alessandro comes out after they find the lizard.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Oh, maybe it's not D'Alessandro. It might be D'Alessandro's mate, the victim, the monk, the decapitated monk.
Yes.
Comes out, and Udo Kier just goes, 2 women and 1 man. He must be very powerful. Look at his head.
Well, it's now dialogue and performance that reminds me of something like The Room. Like it has that similar.
It's incredible.
Kind of vibe.
Like Keir going cross-eyed with pain like 3 times in the last 20 minutes.
Phenomenal. What do you think of Udo Kier in this generally?
I love him in it. I think he's wonderful. I've always been a fan of Udo Kier. I think he's got that kind of like Nicolas Cage brand of, like, if you pitch him at the right thing, then his temperament is perfect for the right project. And obviously he's sort of beloved in cult circles. But the thing that was really, I haven't seen it for a few years, so it was nice to go back to it. I think I was saying to you just before we started recording, it was nice to have an excuse to dig it out and watch it, because I bought the 4K, but I hadn't seen it. I hadn't put it on yet. But this is the first time I've been like, oh fuck me, he's really young.
Yeah.
Like, because I was so much younger than him when I first watched it, and he kind of maintained that. Even as I got closer to his age, I watched it over the years. Like, he was still like kind of an adult, and, you know, the Count was this sort of authority figure. But now going back to it in my mid 40s, it's like, oh wow, he's so much younger than me.
Really young.
And he's just this like pretty, slightly effeminate, very camp.
Yeah.
Like grossed out by regular sex, but very into like
fucking like sort of wounds and gallbladders and things.
Well,
and,
exactly, because when they're outside the brothel, there's screaming going on because there's a lizard.
Yes, that's right.
Regular stuff.
Yeah,
and it cuts to the outside, and Otto goes, "Oh, do you think they're beating them?" And Frankenstein, in one of cinema's greatest misdirects, goes, "They're into some weird stuff." Possibly. And then later he's like, "Oh yeah, it's form, not function, that he's interested in."
That's right.
When it comes to orifices.
That's right. It's so interesting. And this kind of then sort of farcical mix-up where, because he wants to get a man's head with a good libido, right? Yeah. But he gets this guy who has got the high libido mixed up with his friend who is really pious and wants to become a monk, right? And so that's why, like you say, he ends up shouting at this man, eventually, this creature, for not becoming aroused, essentially, at the sight of a woman.
By being kissed a bit by a naked lady in some masking tape pants. It's absolutely stupendous. That first scene of expository dialogue between D'Alessandro and the guy that gets decapitated and turned into the creature's head is wonderful. I think my favourite thing about it is just how like fully fucking Brooklyn D'Alessandro is amongst all of the Euro accents. And D'Alessandro's like, "What do you want to be a monk for?"
It's so good. And then, of course, he ends up having an affair with Frankenstein's wife, right, as well. So then
also sister, wife and sister. Wife,
sister, I should say. Absolutely, because he is not able to satisfy her urges at the same time, right? So she finds the nice farm boy as well. So there's, it's incredible. It is like this kind of Euro sort of porn sleaze type story at the same time as all this body horror going on.
The weird thing is, I mean, like some of the gore was kind of like shocking for the time.
Yeah.
And you know, it is playing with taboo subjects, but actually what's on screen, especially sexually, is quite restrained.
Yeah, the sex is pretty restrained, isn't it?
Yeah, and if you think about films of the era, you'd expect far more sexual violence in a picture of this type.
Yes.
For the period. And actually, like for the most part, the women are consensual, or dead. That's iffy. That's problematic. Granted, but like the bit, I watched the trailer as well, and the trailer really kind of does try and sell it as this kind of like male gaze, misogynistic,
right?
And it's not that.
No, it's not,
because he comes from the world of art, albeit modern art.
Yeah.
I think he does have a different sensibility. It's a much queerer movie than you might expect from the way it was marketed.
Yeah.
It's like often Frankenstein isn't actually as much in a position of power. Like the simpering he does to his sister wife and the threat of the parents coming and disapproving of their weird incest children, and the incest children, like their ending is terrific. Like the whole thing is just wonderful.
Yeah, but you're right. It has more of a, I guess, a female gaze more than a male gaze, I would say, in the way that it portrays the kind of the men's bodies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, D'Alessandro went on to be one of the first male stars who was like a pin-up.
Right.
And he'd do new modelling and like sort of, I don't know if he ever did Playgirl or whatever, but like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'd say there's at least as much male frontal nudity as there is female frontal nudity.
Yeah.
Like full frontal nudity in it. And like, yeah, there's, other than Otto licking the bride's wounds and being lascivious at that maid who ends up getting killed on that grate with all the liver hanging down towards the camera in 3D.
Yeah.
But like for the most part, the men are they're Lotharios and they're morally bankrupt, but they're not sexually aggressive in a way that you might expect for a movie. Like, you know, this is the same era as things like House on the Edge of the Park.
Exactly.
And Spit on Your Grave. And if you compare this to those, it's a world apart.
It is.
Like sort of morally.
Yeah, completely. And actually, like you said at the beginning, it's kind of beautiful looking, this film, right? Actually,
it really
those
is, yeah.
gorgeous kind of Italian visuals that we get here with this, right? Actually looks really sumptuous. And of course, you get this kind of these bursts of gore. What do you think, Dan, of the sort of gore and makeup effects in this?
I mean, I want you to know that there's a heavy caveat coming. But they are very bad. The caveat is some of the dummy work is far better than the prosthetics. The prosthetics are not very good throughout. And I understand some of what they were trying to do, but it's not. Nothing's blended. Nothing sits well in the skin. It all looks kind of rubbish. But the bodies are pretty good, like the dead bodies. And when they do the decapitation, the fact that they've got cable controlled eyes and that like torrent of blood coming out of the neck, like there's a very deliberate style there, and I think that speaks volumes. Yeah. And then the fact, although I must say, because D'Alessandro wasn't very tall,
right?
And in his real life, this got him into a lot of fights. He had little man.
Oh, really? Okay.
And like he did jail time, and he was he was a rabble rouser.
Yeah.
But there's a bit where he's like, well, that's not my friend. My friend was shorter than him, and he's taller, so it's my friend's head on someone else's body. That's the only conclusion I could come to. And it's like, hang on a minute, I watched your friend get decapitated, and his neck was at least a full head height above his body compared to a normal person. Because they've done that like classic, like build up the shoulders for the, and you know what, they actually do a relatively good job of that. Although again, in a sort of thank you 4K kind of moment where you see things you haven't seen before, I love that wide when D'Alessandro wakes up next to his friend's body and there's just like the sand where his friend was decapitated in the previous sequence is just fucking soaked with like 4 takes worth of blood.
It's so, and why the decision to make it 3D? Is that just to add to the kind of big spectacle for this movie, do you think? Like,
so as far as I know, Morrissey was presented the brief as it being a 3D movie. And again, as I said earlier, sources differ on this, but Polanski knew this chap Carlo Ponti, who was an Italian producer, and Ponti had got this thing where he was like, I want to do some 3D stuff. This is an emergent technology. People are going to love it. Let's do some movies. And Polanski recommended Morrissey for it. I've not been able to find any source as to what Ponti thought about Dracula not being in 3D.
Right, yeah.
But they did shoot Dracula, like, I think they started production on Dracula like a couple of weeks after they finished Flesh of Frankenstein.
Okay, yeah.
So they didn't have any indication as to how successful Frankenstein was going to be yet. So and this is pure summation on my part, but my suspicion is that Ponti was like, we can do, if Morrissey is saying that his film doesn't need it and he can do as much for less money, then let's just fucking do that. Because, you know, and yeah. I really like Blood for Dracula as well. I absolutely adore it. And I actually saw it before I saw Flesh of Frankenstein. But it's not as lush. It's not as vibrant and fun. It is more satirical. It is more like poignant in places, but it's not as Technicolor and vivacious.
Sure.
So I can see how it also wasn't as expensive.
You know, we talked about it being a satire. What is it satirizing, I suppose, this film? Like, what is it kind of exposing in terms of looking at the absurdity? Is this a kind of bourgeois, is it kind of Eat the Rich type movie that we call now?
I mean, like, I think it obviously it deals with the class divide.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of deals with the class divide really only insofar as that is part of the tapestry that it's inherited.
Right, yeah.
I think it's much more about like morals and mores and hypocrisy within sexuality and prudishness, performative prudishness.
Right.
Like, because it seems to be like at its heart, it's much more about how, and yeah, you can, like everyone in this is horny. Like D'Alessandro's kind of more honest about it.
Yeah.
Everyone is horny except the one guy that's meant to be horny, the guy that gets his head cut off. But there's no dividing line other than, I guess, that D'Alessandro is having good old-fashioned, like, honest-to-goodness field sex rather than, like, freaky castle spleen sex.
Right, absolutely.
But the point is, everyone is sort of, like, libido-driven in this. Like, those guys wouldn't have gotten into the trouble they were in if they weren't in a brothel. And all of the, like, friction between Keir and Baroness Frankenstein is born out of the fact that she's incredibly prudish, but she's also very horny and very hypocritical. So she's, like, you know, in a little wagon with a hilarious tiny pony being pulled along with the horses, and she sees, like, you know, some peasants having sex in a hay cart on the edge of their land, and she's like, "Oh, you're disgusting! I'll have to talk to my husband about you." And off she goes. But then also she's absolutely thirsty for peasant.
Yes.
So, like, you know, she's like, "Oh, I've got myself a male servant now." And like, you know, her and D'Alessandro get on for a little while before he gets uppity and wants to move on, and she gets very, like, resentful. Jen and I have been watching this. Have been watching alongside this the Netflix adaptation of the Decameron. I don't know if you've seen.
No, I haven't. No,
it's an absolute delight.
Is it? Yeah,
it's really good. And you can see where they've, like, again, that kind of has a thing a little bit like this, a little bit like Flesh of Frankenstein, where it has these amazing lines in it, except in this, it's because they're just from the Decameron. But the Decameron is about, like, European nobles waiting out the plague in a villa, and telling each other stories to pass the time. But there's an enormous amount of resentment and intrigue and backstabbing, and double dealing and betrayal and deceit going on alongside it. And particularly this production of it, which was all shot in real, like, castles and stately homes around Europe. Although, like, when I found that out, the fact that they keep on fucking falling in the box hedges made me, like, very upset. Like, no, you didn't bring those in. Those aren't Greensperson boxes.
Good point. Yeah, it's a good point.
But yeah, no, they work really nicely. I mean, it's far more restrained, but there's a fantastic sequence, like, sort of about halfway through the season, where it is revealed that this the Lord of the Manor, who's actually dead, but his death is being hidden from people because it will kick off a power struggle, was actually a dirty whoring horn dog. And this is demonstrated by being shown his parlour, which his widow didn't know about, and it's like a basement room just full of, like, golden cots and tableaus from the Kama Sutra all around the walls, and everyone's horrified. And again, it's very much playing with the idea of, like, living with a fear of sinning is an innate constriction on you, put in place by society, and that you can go too far in the other direction, but that there's this middle ground where real freedom exists, and you can't be happy if you're pushed too far in either direction. And I think that there's a lot of that going on in Flesh of Frankenstein, where, like, you know, Keir is whatever the fuck is wrong with Udo Kier in this movie. You know, whether it's maybe his parents are siblings as well. But the point is that, like, he's definitely a wrong-un.
Yeah.
But, like, that bit at the end where he's been impaled and his organ
coming
is
at the screen,
waggling up at the screen, and he's basically going, "I was just a scientist with a dream." And it's like, yeah, you had a pretty dodgy dream.
He had some odd proclivities. It's so funny. What do you think of the creatures then, I suppose? We have two creatures in this. I mean, they don't get a huge amount to do, right? But what?
No. I love their weird costumes, those corsets with the arm stirrups to, like, hold their bodies up, because their abdomens are so weak because it's fresh injury, which is sort of foreshadowing for Otto, like, fucking everything up. A bit later. But, like, yeah, they're kind of amazing. They're moody, beautiful young things just being led around. Being a bit cross. There's the moment of like the little girl thrown into the lake in this takes the form of crushing Baroness von Frankenstein, sort of by accident in an amorous embrace. Although the alarm bells that don't ring for her when she's like, come on up to my room, zombie.
Yeah, I know.
She says to Frankenstein, will he do what I tell him? And Frankenstein says, only if I tell him to do it. And she's like, well, okay, fine. Tell him to come upstairs with me. Go upstairs with her. Okay, so they go upstairs together, and she's like, right, come on, let's get it on. And he basically just starts throttling her, and she's like, no, not like that.
Yeah.
But does decide to continue.
Yeah.
Not to victim blame, but goodness me,
she's just that horny, isn't she? She can't help it.
She is very horny. It's everyone's comeuppance.
Yeah, it's so true.
They're too horny.
I love it. And then we do have a bonkers ending, like you mentioned, with kind of various people being killed and impaled and disemboweled, and then the children like coming for the person that's strung up at the end, right, as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just sort of playing with him, aren't they?
Yeah.
And that's really maybe the place where you can say it's the most eat the rich, because they're like very privileged children who don't know any better.
Yeah.
Have been like they've been ostracized from their school because they're fucking weird, obviously. I mean, they are also victims because they are children of incest. They're going to have defects, neurological defects because of that. So like it's a heady cocktail of moral ambiguity, but they definitely do a murder.
They do a murder. I love it. What a bonkers movie. I mean, how do you think that this is the sort of movie that, because I had never heard of it, and I feel like more people need to see this movie as well, right? Like it's relatively
and the thing is, I think it was pretty influential, but it's one of those things where when you find something, and again, we used to talk about these on the podcast, you find this, like, we call them jigsaw piece movies, where you find the movie that was the missing piece in like a sort of a cultural moment, and you pop it in, and it's like, that's the corner, that's where everything came.
Yeah,
like everything drew from that, and you can see all the things that borrowed from it and were influenced by it over the years, and it's like, oh yeah, that all makes so much sense. It's like when I watched Angst for the first time, and it's like, oh, I get Gaspar Noé now.
Absolutely. Oh, for sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is definitely one of those movies. Yeah, I love it. So do you think it holds up well?
I really think it does. Yeah, I really think it does. And the thing is, I'm still seeing new stuff in it. I'm still appreciating it on new levels. I think there's a sort of a consideration, given that he didn't write the script very far in advance, and which was very different for Dracula. They even though they filmed it within a couple of weeks, he had a full script before they started Dracula. Right. It was a much more organized film. This was really weird because it was this sort of liminal project between the loosey-goosey make it up as we go along of Warhol's Factory and making proper narrative films.
Yeah. Okay.
Proper, I'm doing air quotes for your listeners. Proper narrative films. That lack of script doesn't mean he hadn't put an enormous amount of forethought in it. And there's just all the way through, there are constant little moments where you go, oh, this is a really well-considered world.
Yeah.
Like Morrissey has built a space where everything lends itself to the narrative. I really love the fact that the children have robotic caged songbirds in their room.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, yeah, that's going to be a thing that the children of Frankenstein have.
Right, yeah.
Because, like, why would he get real birds that you have to keep alive in a cage and feed? Like, he's going to idealize this, like, the function without the biology, without the necessity that goes with it. And all the way through, there are these really lovely things, even down to, like, I love the joke when he starts, and then he's sort of doing some operating with Otto, and it's when he goes off on making the master race.
Yeah.
And the music that's playing at the beginning is sort of like almost like a sort of a fanfare, like it's non-military is the main thing.
Yeah.
And then as he talks, it's almost like Russ Meyer used to use this trick in his work, where they'd bring in like a sort of a German military band score to like really hammer home.
Yeah.
Like it's somehow it's miraculously both subtle and not in any way subtle.
Exactly.
And I really love it because he has kind of really like populated an enormous amount of stuff. And given that a lot of it would have been things he was kind of brought in the moment.
Yeah.
His collaborators, obviously, I say he thought of this stuff. A lot of the stuff would have been conceived of by his collaborators.
Right.
And then he would have chosen it and placed it. But he's crafted this really fantastic, a very rich world on which he can then do this kind of crazy, like it is a pastiche.
Yeah.
Of exploitation, of prudishness, of modern like sexual mores and proclivities, and the sort of shame that people have around that.
Yeah, completely. I agree with you. I think it holds up really well, and it's just so much fun to watch. Like, there's not a second of it that is boring or drags, I would say, for that reason, because it is hitting you with so much kind of camp and taboo right throughout.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, it really is. And like you said, it's like, if you don't know what's going on before you go in, it's just going to be like,
it's quite a journey.
Astonishing.
Yeah, it's quite a journey. I love it. Well, there you go. Anything else you want to mention, Dan, before we wrap up on this film?
I was inspired watching it again the other night. I was inspired to, and in fact, so I was thinking that Monique Van Vuren, who plays the Baroness, reminded me quite a lot of Gwendoline Christie in a couple of scenes.
Oh, yeah.
And off the back of that, I thought, holy fuck, I'll tell you what would be really good, would be a Peter Strickland remake of this.
There is something quite Peter Strickland about this, isn't there?
Right?
Yeah.
So I texted Peter.
Yes! Oh my God.
And I told him, and I'm just saying, if anyone out there has the budget for a 3D Frankenstein sexploitation horror, I'm pretty sure Peter would be up for it.
100%. Oh my God. I would watch the shit out of that. Yeah, incredible. I love that. Well, there you go. Dan, as always, I always love to, while you're on here, get a few sort of additional recommendations, really, or anything else that people might not be as aware of as some of the biggies. So I wanted to finish by asking you if there are any other kind of, sort of, I guess, like slightly lesser known movies, a bit like this one, sort of Frankenstein or Frankenstein-esque movies that you want to recommend before we wrap up.
Yeah, I thought about this, and this consideration ahead of this episode is really where my rant at the beginning about how, like, what the hell where do you draw the line? What do you consider a Frankenstein movie comes from? So I've only got a couple for you.
Sure.
But I really, really recommend people go and watch Frankenstein versus Baragon.
Okay.
In which the Nazis have stolen Frankenstein's heart, the Frankenstein's creature's heart, and then cloned a new Frankenstein. But they happen to be in Japan at the time, and it gets nuked. And so the experiment they're doing to clone Frankenstein's monster gets irradiated. And so now we've got Frankenstein as a kaiju.
Fantastic. Oh my God.
And there's a sequel with the two sons of Frankenstein fighting. One is a moral good and one is is chaotic, and it's incredible. So yeah, those two I really strongly recommend.
Excellent. Yeah, good.
And then the other one, which is this, I'm slightly dubious about recommending it because it's not a good film.
Okay.
But it's one of those films where if you watch it with the right group of friends, it's an absolute delight. It's by Charles Band, who's done some good films and some less good films. It's from 1997, which is way more recent than I anticipated when I went to look it up, but also a lot longer ago than I like to think about. It's called The Creeps.
Yeah.
And it asks that dangerous question, what would happen if all of the Universal creatures, all of the Universal monsters were real, and someone resurrected them, but due to a Jimbo the Tiny Aeroplane style scientific error, they all came back played by little people.
Fantastic. Incredible. What's not to love?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's amazing.
Oh my God, incredible. Well, there you go. Well, Dan, thank you so much. My final question for you then, putting aside some of these weird little movies, what is your favourite across this whole subgenre, as difficult as that is?
I mean, it's probably Flesh for Frankenstein, but seeing as we're talking about Flesh for Frankenstein, I think I probably have to go with the original Universal version. And the reason, like, there's so much to love about it, and there's so many other amazing versions around, but the reason that it goes so hard for me is Jack Pierce.
Oh my God.
Who designed the makeup effects. And Jack was an absolutely incredible man. He had a fantastically interesting life. But he came up in the studio system and he moved into special effects. And he was like, he kind of revolutionized how people were doing effects at the time. And I would say that he was as important to effects in his era as Dick Smith was in his, and Stan Winston was in his. And like, he was an absolute legend. And this is one of his all-time crowning glories, was the makeup he did for Boris Karloff in the original Universal. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's incredible, right? I mean, I had a long 2-hour conversation with James Swanson about this movie, so I won't get into it too much, but that makeup it's almost passed through just being sort of a film reference now, right? I mean, this is the thing. It's like you ask anyone of any age, you ask an infant, what does Frankenstein's creature look like, and they'll know that makeup.
This is the thing. I mean, Universal have copyright on the look.
Yeah.
And it's done like a tick box like a tick sheet. And if you have too many of those things in your design, you're
the big
infringing
forehead,
copyright.
the electrodes,
the bolts, the scar across the forehead, all that stuff. I mean, unless you're Sam Altman or one of the AI guys, in which case copyright doesn't apply to you, because your business doesn't work if you're not allowed to steal.
Bringing us nicely back to the beginning. I love that. Well, there you go. Well, Dan, thank you. It's been such a pleasure to have you on, as always. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
No worries. And just remind people, is there anything that you've got coming up that people that people should check out? Anything you've worked on of late that is going to be available anytime soon?
I did the Inside Number 9 live show is touring now, which I designed.
Oh, no way! I didn't know that was you.
Yeah.
I saw it twice on stage. Absolutely
nice.
Loved it.
Yeah. So we're rebuilding, refurbing, and there's a couple of cast changes, so we've got to make some new stuff for that. But yeah, so I designed all the gags for that.
Amazing.
Which is really fun. What else? We've got a big ITV drama that we did some lookalike makeups for. Coming up that has Steve in it. So we did his makeup for the character he plays.
As in Steve Pemberton.
For Steve Pemberton, Steve Pemberton.
Nice.
And Dougray Scott as well. We did his makeup for that. And that we shot that under the name Mandrake, but I think it's going to be released as The Hack.
Oh, cool.
That's going to come out later this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same director as Long Shadow, the Peter Sutcliffe drama.
Cool. Yeah. Nice. Excellent.
So that was really fun. That was really good. Yeah. So like I said, stuff just takes longer now. So we spend longer. I mean, we did Hungry, the killer hippo film.
Oh yes.
But I don't know. I don't know when that's due out. It's in post-production at the moment, so fingers crossed that's going to be fun. We did make a massive practical hippopotamus for that. That was very fun.
Incredible. I remember you showing me videos of it. It looked absolutely unbelievable. Yeah, I can't wait for that.
Delight.
Killer Hippo. Brilliant.
Yeah,
there should be more of those. Why aren't there more of those movies, So I love that.
But yeah, other than that, I just occasionally witter about Universal Basic Income and special effects on social media. Instagram, Blue Sky, 13 Finger Effects.
Amazing. Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man. Really lovely.
And that's it for this week. Thank you all so much for listening. One more time, a huge thank you to my two incredible guests, Dan Martin and Sam Pancake. Now, I would love to hear what you thought of this week's films. It was really fun doing two slightly more out there movies, slightly more comedic movies, Young Frankenstein and Flesh for Frankenstein. Drop us a message. Let us know what you thought. You can email me on evolutionofhorror@gmail.com. You can also find Evolution of Horror on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me, Mike Muncer, on Instagram and on Blue Sky. If you want to discuss this week's episode with fellow listeners, you can join the Evolution of Horror Discord, or you can join the Evolution of Horror discussion group, and that is on Facebook. If you want to get ad-free versions of these episodes and get treated to regular bonus content, sign up to our Patreon, patreon.com/Evolution of Horror. This podcast is part of the EOH network. You can now listen to our other podcasts, The Detective and the Log Lady, a Twin Peaks rewatch podcast with Stacey Ponder. All episodes of that are now available wherever you get your podcasts, or you can sign up to our brand new podcast, Carry On Up the Podcast, with me and Susan Kalman. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts. So, on to next week then, and we finally reach our final Frankenstein adaptation. Next week, I'm going to be joined by Adam Z. Robinson, and we are just going to be talking about one film, quite a divisive Frankenstein adaptation, but it is definitely one that everybody has an opinion on. There's going to be lots to say. Next week, Adam Robinson and I will be discussing Kenneth Branagh's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein from 1994. Join us next week for all of this and more on the evolution of horror.